Welcome then to our presentation. Basically, throughout this presentation, it says we're going to be giving an overview of our ideas and research and taking in their creation thus far in our project.
So then, as you can see in this presentation, we will be going through the following sections of our ideas. Name ideas, demographic area, lead story ideas, half lead story ideas, interview ideas, advertisements, budget, health and safety, cell line, photography, free or paid for press, frequency, ancillary ideas and research.
So, for our name ideas. Five name ideas we've had, as you can see, are the Rotherham Chronicle, the Rotherham Review, the Rotherham Post, the Rotherham Reporter, and the Rotherham Gazette. And as it says, the reason for these name choices are their clear identification of our target demographic, and some interrelationship with the broadsheet genre of newspapers, which is the genre of local newspaper we're wishing to create. As in our target demographic area, which we'll be coming on to in a second, there is a lack of this genre of newspaper, so we believe there's a gap in the market.
The newspaper was created for the demographic readership area of Rotherham and its surrounding boroughs primarily, and then secondly for local towns areas surrounding the borough of Rotherham. However, more specifically, it will be directed at members of the demographic that are of social grading A, B and C1, as this section of the target demographic are more stereotypically inclined to be interested in the broadsheet news. The reason for this choice of demographic then, as stated previously, is that the genre of newspaper we are wishing to create is severely underrepresented in this local area, and as such we believe by primarily targeting the above sections of the demographic there is a market for this genre of local news, which can be exemplified through the JICREG reports that are hyperlinked at the bottom of this page.
And this basically is just a graphic representation of our primary and secondary target demographic areas, with Rotherham and the surrounding area of the Rotherham Borough, and it just basically is just exemplifying what we've been saying previously on the slide.
For our first edition, our lead story idea is about how Rotherham Council is going to start to charge for the replacement waste bins it provides, and for our second edition, our lead story idea is about how controversy regarding the police and their views on antisocial behaviour in regards to its status as a crime. These two stories have been chosen as the first will directly affect the people of Rotherham financially, and in the context of the newspaper portraying the agenda of our local people, in order to address its target demographic in a financially uncertain time. The story to us is considered newsworthy, while the second story, although not being directly aimed at Rotherham and is of national significance, we believe that due to South Yorkshire being one of the 7 highest areas affected by the country, and it being a story to the majority of our demographic can relate to it in some way, due to its relation in the moral panic of York culture, it is newsworthy.
For our first edition, our half-week story idea is about how Knigsbridge Neath Quarry is going to reopen after 20 years. Also, our second edition half-week story, we are planning to write about the home of South Yorkshire's Labour politicians and having local issues raising importance in the Labour Party's agenda due to the appointment of Ed Miliband, who is the Doncaster MP for Yorkshire as the head of the Labour Party. And these two stories have been chosen as the first of direct significance, both historically and socially, to the paper's target demographic, but this therefore makes it newsworthy to us. And furthermore, the second story is directly relevant both to our primary and secondary demographics, and hence newsworthy through relation to our paper's agenda, representing the news in the sense of an agenda that is tailored to the views and interests of our target demographic.
For the first edition of our newspaper, we are considering interviewing a local political figure and some members of the local public for the lead story, as we believe this will provide both the factual side of the story, while still allowing for us to express the agenda of the newspaper through the response of everyday citizens. Whilst for the half-lead story, we are considering interviewing members of the general public, both in Rotherham and Doncaster, to obtain their views on the quarry reopening. This would therefore express the social and historical context of the quarry reopening through the eyes of the public, hence expressing the agenda of the newspaper. For the second edition of our newspaper, we are considering interviewing a member of the police force in the target demographic area, members of the general public, to gain a journalistic perspective of the story, while still expressing the agenda of the newspaper through inclusion of local views on the issue. Whilst for the half-lead story, we are considering interviewing local Labour supporters and politicians alongside their base citizens of the demographic area, as we believe this again will give this story a journalistic perspective vital broadsheet newspaper, whilst again becoming an agenda newspaper.
Looking at the advertisements that were present in our newspaper, and as it says, advertising in our newspaper will primarily be contents books, but there will also be local business advertising in a marginalised manner. And the reason for this is that contents books are the primary type of advertisement displayed in broadsheet news, which, as we've stated, is a genre of news which we create a newspaper for. While we still have to adhere to one of the subgenres of our newspaper being a local newspaper, and one of the local newspaper conventions is to actually convey like advertising to local businesses, such as this one that says home contents insurance from like Age Concern. As like Age Concern isn't like a directly local business, but it's one that is actually operating in the local area. And so by combining both of these, we're hoping to adhere to the two subgenres we're trying to convey to our audience and embody in our media text with these projects.
The only financial aspect involved in the production of our project will be the transportation costs involved in conducting interviews and photography shoots. This will equate to the sum of 2 average student bus fares, which is around 40p each. Therefore, the budget production of this project is well within the means of financially.
So to the health and safety aspects of our project, the only real health and safety issues that we have are areas we need to be aware of. When we're conducting interviews and when we're conducting a photographic shoot, there's places when we conduct our interviews, square plans through vox pops, we need to make sure there's no possible danger involved in the people we're going to interview. For the photography, we need to make sure any health and safety precautions are taken into consideration due to location. And we should never be shooting hazardous conditions, so we're not going to start taking photography on a busy road and then stepping back onto the busy road to take photography.
3 cell lines we are considering are representing South Yorkshire, news tailored to you, and finally your views in today's news. The reasons for these cell lines being considered are their connotations of the newspaper's agenda being one in which the views and interests of local people are represented, and in the case of the first cell line representing South Yorkshire, its identification of the target demographic of the paper as a whole.
As a photographer, having researched broadsheet newspapers whilst contrasting generic conventions of local and national newspapers, we decided not to employ a paparazzi style photography, which is a generic convention of tabloid news, and go for more planned and thought out photographic style of broadsheets. This will therefore mean that we'll have to create photography call sheets when planning the juxtaposition of our headlines with the article image to mediate the agenda of the local community across the reader semiotically. As this planning work will ensure that we can achieve our desired semiotic effect and thus adhere to the photographic style of broadsheet news.
Our product will be part of the paid for press, as in order to adhere to generic conventions of broadsheets found in our generic conventions research, we would have to marginalise the use of business advertisements planned, which is part of free press, makers of the majority of our revenue, making the concept financially improbable.
For the frequency of our newspaper, we decided to make it a daily broadsheet. It's like the genre broadsheet news. Daily newspapers are severely underrepresented in our area, and we believe by combining both the genre and frequency that's underrepresented, we're able to capture the target demographic that we know through research does exist, and therefore we are hoping then to capitalise on this gap in the market for our products.
For our ancillary tasks, we are going to create a radio advert and poster for our newspaper. In the case of our radio advert, we are planning to design our advert broadcast on local radio stations such as Rover FM and Hallam FM, as these are 2 major local radio stations for our target demographic, and the advert will be centred around an upcoming feature in our newspaper, which will be directed directly towards our target demographic. Reason being that the majority of our demographic, being working class, will often be driving to work and listening to the radio, and as such, the majority of the demographic will be aware of our newspaper existence and selling point through this medium.
Also, the poster, we're considering a billboard/bus style poster, and this will clearly advertise the newspaper and its selling point to our target demographic for a predominantly graphic advertisement. This would work then on the basis of the majority of our demographic at some point accessing the advertisement either consciously or subconsciously as they go about their everyday lives. And hence advertisement will contain a lot of mediated semantic connotations to be decoded by our target demographic in order to achieve our desired effect.
By creating these two ancillary products, our product will have employed synergy in order to achieve maximum selling efficiency, as by employing both digital and print-based advertisement options for our newspaper, we are ensuring the majority of our target demographic are informed about the newspaper and its selling point, as we can safely infer from our ancillary plans that in some way, despite contextual circumstances such as not owning a radio our demographic is going to access one of these advertisement methods at some time during their everyday lives.
To conclude then, what we now need to research is radio advertisements broadcast on the two stations we are considering to use, which are Rotherham and Hallam, like for our broadcasting needs, and how they advertise their products to their target demographics. Finally, we need to research billboard and bus style posters in order to identify how they engage their audience and encode semiotic connotations related to their products, so we can do the same when we produce our two ancillary tasks.
Now that we have finished that, we would first like to thank you for listening, and now ask that you fill in the questionnaires given to you in order for us to improve and adjust our ideas based on your feedback.